I feel like that's such a crucial approach to not starting to get this overwhelm where you feel as if everything's so hard and you're always running in sand and there's so much stuff to learn and everything's so confusing. It's like if you do it this way, it won't be nearly as confusing.
You are now listening to the Creative Juice podcast brought to you by Entrepreneur.io.
What's up, indies? Welcome back to Creative Juice. This is the podcast where we cover growing and monetizing a fan base and building a music career with marketing strategies that are working right now based on what we see every single day inside our music marketing agency and across our community of thousands of artists and bands. I hope you enjoy and subscribe. This is episode 386, and I'm your host, Jack McCarthy. With me, as always, is Circa. Cirque, what's up, buddy? And a very special guest.
Well, we're excited to be here with you, Jack. What are we talking about today?
Today, we've spent the last couple weeks talking about offers. And today, we wanted to talk about the mindset involved in launching offers of any kind, really. This can apply to merch. This can apply to music. This can apply to tours. This could apply to side projects. This could really apply to anything that you might want to launch in your music business. And it's the mindset that helps you get more done. We've talked before about MVPs, minimum viable products, on the show, but today we wanted to talk a little bit about this concept of how to actually move to get something done without the head trash of, what if my fans don't like it? What if I don't know how to do this? How do I get inventory? Where do I start with all of the stuff that I need to do to actually launch an offer? And so we're going to talk about some ready, fire, aim concepts today, specifically for musicians, and hopefully give you guys a bit of a framework to work with to help you do launches correctly, get them done faster, move forward quicker, and not get yourself stuck in a pre-launch phase for him.
Yeah, I'd love to just clarify like that we shouldn't limit the scope here to launches and selling a product or doing a sales campaign, because this truly is an attitude you can adopt for implementation-led learning, which I think is not done enough, where it's like there's no sense in learning like a bunch of hypothetical theory where you have no example. Like, for instance, if I were to learn all about a car without ever seeing or touching a car and its internals, I'd have to memorize all this stuff with no visual aspect to it, no tactile aspect to it, where I can't associate a memory or something I learned with a part of the car that I saw or that I touched. And so implementation-led learning is my preference for all learning. It's how I kind of do everything. And when you discover a new concept and you learn enough about it to really kind of start to understand what it's used for and sort of the outer shape of it, you don't know the internals or the implementation details, just go implement. You'll learn the implementation details really quickly, and it's a lot more rewarding, and I think leads to a greater understanding than just learning in theory and then like rigidly planning out and strategizing. So I think what we're going to talk about today can apply to a lot of aspects of your music career, of your life, of how you sort of self-improve and head towards, a self-sustaining entrepreneur, artist, sort of public personality.
This is really true, and I like that you broke it down that way, because where we started this topic and this discussion was around like, okay, how do you get a new offer off the ground, right? Especially if you're, wondering like, okay, well, I want to launch merch. So that means I need to first create the design, and then I need to get somebody to print the shirts. And sure, that's one piece of the puzzle, right? All that paralysis that might happen around like, how do I fulfill the offer that I'm going to be launching? But there's also so many other intermediate parts that also get artists tripped up. Okay, I know I want to make an offer and I have my offer, but how do I write the copy for it? What if I don't know how to write the email campaigns or build the email campaigns? What if I don't have an email marketing software? What if I don't know how to run an ad? What if I'm literally starting from scratch and I've never done any of these things before? You can get really paralyzed. And I think you're totally right in pointing out that like this sort of like MVP work or implementation-led learning, as you put it, it's kind of a meta skill, and I think some people naturally learn and operate this way, or they learn to do this as they grow up. Maybe this is just how they learn to function in like school settings where like they learn stuff and then they do it and they get better over time. But other people don't. So that's why we wanted to talk about this today.
Yeah. And so really what we're talking about today is prototyping. As Jack said, like, maybe one thing that I could address is like, I don't think I need to explain to you what I'm talking about. If you're listening to this, I probably don't need to go too deep on the difference between prototyping and theory-based learning, where your actual hands-on work with the concepts you're learning comes much later, right? Prototyping is figuring out a problem space, a big question mark in your concept space in your head, and mapping that territory by exploring it rather than sourcing information about it from another place.
Sorry to interrupt. Shout out to my music producers and specifically like mix engineers. I think if you have worked in that capacity at all as an artist,
You have to. No, there is no book you can
Yeah.
read of like the knobs on a specific like random piece of like offboard gear that you got, right? You have to experiment.
Yeah, I mean, sure, you can do all of that, but I think you're naturally thrown into the ocean of like, oh, I've got this thing, like I'm going to start tinkering and turning knobs. Even if I think about the first time that I learned about compression, right? I definitely messed around with a compressor before I knew anything about what it did. And I think most engineers would probably agree with me that was their experience as well. And then you learn.
Yeah, I think production gear manufacturers made this critical mistake of never coalescing around like an industry standard for what terms mean. There is no shared vocabulary. So you could read the documentation for one channel strip and what they're calling a given knob and the variable it acts on could be completely different and have completely different envelope and characteristics by default than a completely similar channel strip. And so for that reason, you do have to explore. Just to say that we have your concept space in your head. This is a space of all concepts you know, right? Or could know. And a lot of it's dark. A lot of it is not mapped. You have not explored and understood where all the roads lead and what the territory looks like. You don't know all concepts. So learning is about filling in that map, about mapping the concept space. And one way to do that is to go buy a map and copy it, right? But you haven't actually been there. So you don't know if there's problems with the map maker. You don't know. And like what they're telling you, like might not translate in your head to how you like to think about it. The much preferable way for me is to just walk into the dark space on the map and start recording down what I see, right? This is the analogy that I'm going to use here. And so prototyping is really important, not just because it's a more, I would say it has more resolution. It causes more information retention as you learn a concept. But more importantly, you end up with something. If I learn about how to rewire my house, let's say I want to add an electrical outlet to the ceiling. If I learn about that by gathering some tutorial information step by step and then going to do it, right? I will have a much better picture of how it's actually done and what I'll run into than if I learned everything about electrical work. Now, the problem is, and this is true of all concepts, not just dangerous things you could do like rewire your house, but we'll use the house wiring analogy because it's really apt. It'll help you see that there are things I could do in this type of learning that would kill me, right? There are irreversible consequences to not knowing enough, whereby the more preferable thing to do for that specific part of it is to actually learn everything. Okay. And this might be like an analogy for this might be, well, if I go run an ad campaign, if I actually click start, if I didn't know enough about configuring it, it could have disastrous effects. For like, if I just really don't know anything and I couldn't intuit anything about the budgeting, I might end up spending $1,000 without really knowing or wasting $1,000. There's very real consequences to certain things I could do in the prototyping phase. That's the only information you want to know. You just want to know where the boundaries are, the hard consequence boundaries. And then you can go do things. Then you can go do anything you want to. I think that's the fear that keeps a lot of people from doing it this way.
Yeah.
They're afraid they're going to mess something up that they can't reverse.
What if I mess up the critical thing?
Yeah. And if you do implementation-based learning enough, you will start to develop a knack for just seeing those things without being told it. I know if I press start on the campaign there could be impacts. Right? And I'm going to want to double and triple check what I'm doing before I do that. I know that if I go to touch an exposed wire in my house's walls, there's going to be possibly impacts. And I really want to be certain I know everything I need to know before I actually do that. And so that's really the only thing is if implementation-based learning scares you, I would imagine that what I just said speaks to you. That's why it scares you. It's because you're scared you're going to do something you can't take back. And so you should feel a lot freer once you know what those boundaries are, or you can start to intuit them. You should feel freer to do it this way. And again, maybe your learning type is different and this doesn't speak to you. But for me, it's always helped me to get hands on and just try to do it like first thing.
You know, and to give that like some practical wrapper brought back down to music marketing is like when you're looking at implementing and building, a lot of times those critical pieces that you might be worried about and you might not know, well, I don't know when the threshold is. Like, I don't know what the wire that I shouldn't touch is. A lot of times they're coded in buttons that are red or green and they say things like publish or start,
purchase,
launch,
or
or purchase,
live.
Yeah,
Right.
there's a lot of that kind of stuff. And maybe that's, you know, you might be listening to this and be like, duh, dude, but maybe not. And so like, it's important to say like, there are keys on the map to help you identify what those things are so that you don't find yourself tripping up. And I say that just to give you comfort in starting, because so much of this, you know, if you've never run an ad campaign before, you can build an ad campaign all the way up to the last possible thing that you would want to do, which is click the publish button. And even then it won't start until you toggle the on switch, right? So these are the kind of things that like you can get a lot done without even finding yourself in the critical sort of like mistake zone.
Yeah. In development, in software development, we have two concepts that relate pretty heavily to this sort of safe testing environment, right? Where you can learn, you can implement, but you're not going to cause any problems. One is a mock and the other is a sandbox. A mock is something that behaves exactly like the thing you're trying to learn about at the boundaries of it. But internally, its internal logic is just to behave that way. So like a good example of a mock, if I were going to do a mock for your bank, I would need to accept the deposits, spit out the withdrawals, and give you any information related to it. But I don't need to actually implement a bank account on the inside. I don't need to actually implement calculating the output. I can just give you fake output, right? I can give you fake things. That's a mock. A sandbox is the real thing. Okay. It's for all intents and purposes, just like the real thing, except it's not. And a good example is PayPal. If you have a PayPal account as a merchant, you have a PayPal sandbox as well. And it has all the data of your real PayPal account. It has all of the external hooks and different programmatic things you can do with it as your real PayPal account. The only difference is that it doesn't implement actual payment processing. But everything else works the same. Webhooks, deleting customers, programmatically updating customers and purchases, and all that stuff works exactly the same. And so I say all that to say this. When you're learning something, let's say you're learning a sales campaign, right? Within creating a full regalia sales campaign where you're running ads, you're sending out emails, you're taking payments, and you have live payment and sales pages on your website. Within that whole task, there's a sandbox. The boundaries of the sandbox are the wire you don't want to touch. And so the only actual learning you have to do implementation-based learning is just learn where the sandbox's boundaries are. Where's what's the publish button I can't click? What's the run button I can't click? What's the go live switch I can't toggle? And once you learn that, you can safely play around. So the first thing you do is you just learn. You try to search around for, okay, what's going to cause real world consequences that I can't take back? Learn that first, and then it's a playground from then on. And that's what I would suggest. That's how I kind of approach learning any topic.
For sure. Now, I think that this was a good way for us to kind of set the table, right? On really just getting more stuff done, or like getting the thing done that you've been afraid to do, which in the spirit of this, the last few episodes that we've done in this arc is about offers, but it really expands way beyond that. I kind of want to bring this down to what ifs that artists might think about. And I've heard a lot of these before when it comes to building and launching and marketing and making offers, really doing anything in a music career. But there's a number of what ifs that I think come up that we can address here and point you to one, what the boundaries of testing might look like, and also like what you can do to build an MVP or an MVP process that shields you from some risk that you might be afraid of or not ready to take yet. So like, let's start with a really simple one. You want to design merch and you want to sell a piece of merch, right? But you're saying, what if my fans don't like the design, right? That comes up all the time, especially if you've never launched a piece of merch before. If this is your first go at it, maybe you've never designed a piece of merch before. Maybe you're not hiring a designer. Maybe you're doing it yourself and you're like, I don't know if people are going to like this. Like, I don't know if I'm good enough at this that people are going to like this. So what do? Your Sandbox, rather than going straight to launch, which you totally could do, print shirts and have them ready to go and take on that risk. And maybe you're comfortable doing that, but maybe you're not. And if you're not, what you could do, a simple sort of MVP starting point would be design a few pieces and then poll your fans and ask them which one they like. And then measure how many people clicked, how many people, voted for each thing. What kind of feedback did I get? And would it be worth, based on that feedback, me going forward with this? And this is just like one what if example. I'd be curious to hear you weigh in on this. I think you could see where I'm going with this, Cirque.
Yeah, I mean, really think about it like this, right? Let's think about the broader context in which you are thinking about doing some merch. You didn't just learn merch exists, but something in you, this spark, decided, I'm going to do this now, right? And I think it's worth saying that the closer you can get that to the first time it's even possible, when you learned or when you decided you wanted to be an artist or you have music out, the more instantly you can decide to do things, the better. So that's part of your psyche you can train over time and just be more eager to try things. But then secondly, once you decide, hey, I'm going to create some merch, you're just like, what stops me from actually offering a merch product to my existing fans today? What's in between me and that? It's like, well, I need designs and I need a way to print it. Okay, which design should I use? How do I know what design to use? Well, I could hire a graphic designer, but that's like weeks of back and forth communication, finding the right one. I don't want to do that. I'm prototyping. So what's the quickest way I can source some designs? Okay, now I don't want to just guess on which design to use. Maybe you want to implement some kind of structure, just like Jack said, where you're pulling your fans to figure out which design out of a menu they like. For me, if I were in this mode of like, we're creating a merch product, let's do this as quickly as possible. Let's not do any things that hold us up for weeks for no reason, or that like hold us up way longer than other parts of the process. We want to try to make all parts of this process similarly brief. So however brief the briefest part of the process, everything else should be like not too much more wait time than that. Okay, I'm going to send out an email today to my fans. My goal right now, if I'm in this mode, this hypothetical, I need to send out an email to my fans with like 3 to 4 designs. So I need to get designs today and I need to send out that email. And even if I've never sent out an email before, that's what I want to figure out how to do. That's the eagerness with which I would prototype. I would say, clearly I got to wait for them to respond to me. And I do want to email my fans and get their opinion. So this is what I have to do today. And then I just have to wait a day. That's just, if I want my fans' opinion, I have to wait a day or two. So I'm going to try to get to that wait period as quick as possible. Get to the actual, I can't circumvent this waiting period as quick as possible. Whenever you can do something manually to speed it up, do it. And I try to get to that. So if it's like, for instance, recently we had to implement email notifications for our new login for our new app at Indepreneur. And I realized I have to get approval from Amazon to use their email servers for transactional email. So I have to submit a request to them and wait like 24 hours for them to get back. And in order to submit a request to them, I have to get all these details about our implementation and write like a formal letter, like an application. So it was like, before I leave my desk today, I'm doing that because this is the hard wait period and I want to get to that as quick as possible. I should not be waiting any longer because I didn't do something. It should only be because I'm waiting on them. And so that's what I would recommend, is take that approach of like, what's the first bottleneck? What's the first time I have to wait and I can't get around it? And then it's like, get there as quick as possible. That's kind of how I like to think about it.
Yeah, that's so good, man. I think that's a great like work modality to attack with, because it cuts out all of the like trying to jump ahead to the next thing that you can't really jump ahead to anyway, right? Like, especially, going back to the idea of launching an offer, just using that example, like you can think like, oh, I need to source vendors to print my t-shirts, right? I'm going to jump ahead and start doing that. But you don't even have a design yet. So you probably shouldn't do that. You probably should just get the fastest things done first and then move forward. Attack things sequentially.
Well, you think about it like this. There is a finite amount of tasks in between you and the goal you want to achieve, the prototype you want to launch, the thing you want to implement. Let's organize these tasks. Some of these tasks are necessary prerequisites to some task that involves waiting on someone else. There's an externality you can't control. You're waiting on a designer. You're waiting on your fans to email you back and tell you which one they like. Okay, let's think about all the tasks that I have to do before I can start that wait period. Then all the tasks that don't rely on that wait period at all. And then the actual wait period tasks themselves. Do the dependencies for the wait period task first, then make sure you start that clock, and then do all the things that don't require you to wait. Like, for instance, with this t-shirt example, I can create a sales page without knowing what the design's going to be. That's fine. So, but I don't want to do that before I send out the email to get feedback from the fans. So I'm going to get the designs, I'm going to send out the email, and then I'm going to start working on the sales page while I'm waiting for the replies. And this type of ordering, like, this might be a little bit nuanced and like pedantic, but it's just like, this is the crucial sort of hangups that make implementation-led learning and even trying things out after you learn harder. And if you don't know them, it might be what's making it feel like a shittier experience than it has to be. For me, it's a great experience because of these types of little tips and tricks.
Yeah, that's super true. That's super true. It's really just kind of like task management. We haven't done a project management episode. I feel like this is kind of what this is turning into a little bit, which is cool. It's like half project management, half MVP planning. I love this.
I would say even all, like, because on Twitter, there's a developer space where there's literally like celebrity developers. One such developer is Levels.io. And this dude is known for not using any modern web frameworks, using all old school PHP and SQL databases like they did back in like the advent of WordPress, and just using those old tried and true, tested, stable methods for building a website, nothing fancy, and then coming up with product ideas and implementing them in like a day and making millions of dollars. He is this mentality to the fullest. And almost all of them are like almost all of the celebrity developers are like, yeah, I'm going to spin it up. We'll get product market fit. If people like it, great. If they don't, hey, it took me a day. I don't care. And I feel like that's such a crucial approach to not starting to get this overwhelm where you feel as if everything's so hard and you're always running in sand and there's so much stuff to learn and everything's so confusing. It's like, if you do it this way, it won't be nearly as confusing. If you try to learn everything up front before you do thing one, it's going to be very confusing and it's going to feel very overwhelming.
Dude, this is a really interesting concept. It goes into a topic that we've talked about before, which is like, we've talked about the idea of disposable content, right? I think that there's something to be explored here about the idea of like disposable work product as well. Like, you might make a design or 3 designs and send it out to your fans, right? And do that part, and then nobody responds. Was it a waste of your time to do it? Probably not, because you just tested product market fit and now it's back to the drawing board.
It is necessarily a waste of your time, but so are all things. So all things are going to waste your time. What are you trading for it? And how wasteful is the waste?
Right. Exactly.
If you spend a week creating designs and if you spend 3 weeks interfacing with a graphic designer and then you send out this email and no one cares and you get crickets and then you put it out and no one buys it, like, well, you just lost 3 weeks.
Right. It's really interesting. And I think there's to go a little deeper onto the like what ifs side of things, is like, right, we started talking about what if my fans don't like my designs, right? You might then next go to like, what if nobody buys, or what if not enough people buy that it covers my inventory? Well, this is where things like print on demand actually come in handy, is for like validation, prototyping, testing. This is where, same thing with fulfillment, right? Like, oh, I don't know how to fulfill orders. Well, maybe you don't have to for this first go around. Maybe prototyping it is using something like Printful or Printful or whatever. You can do those kinds of things. These are, I think, the thought processes that you have to think yourself through as you're planning to launch something, anything. Merch is just a good example here, and it's relevant because we've been talking about offers for 3 weeks.
Yes. Yeah. One, I would encourage you to do implementation-based learning. Do not try to learn whole concepts without ever touching the real world things that those concepts are about. This is going to sound bad, but touch them as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get your hands on the actual thing you're learning about as quick as possible. Be working with it as you're learning. In fact, it's better that if working with it is what makes you want to learn a certain thing about it. For example, like I recently learned everything about the history of the internet. TCP, HTTP, like 0.9, we could call it HTTP 1, HTTP 1.1, HTTP 2.0, and the incoming Google-led HTTP 3.0. I learned everything about it. Why? Because I started working in HTTP? No, I did that way earlier. I only learned about it when I reached a point in my development where knowing about it was going to really help the thing I had to do next. And that's when I was like, oh, I got to learn how this thing works. Versus if I had been in some college learning computer science and internet like infrastructure, and then like learned about HTTP, by the time I actually have to like know these concepts for a real world application, I would never remember it. It wouldn't be fundamental, but now it's integrated into like the things I have to do every day. And I really, truly understand it in a much better way. So yeah, I would say implementation-based learning. Go do the thing you're learning about doing as you learn how to do it. Very quickly scope out what the boundaries are. What shouldn't I do that would cause deleterious, irreversible consequences? Don't push publish. Don't push run campaign. Don't set the website to live. Don't update your DNS records, right? Don't put a credit card in. Like, these are all very obvious things. There's less obvious things, and you'll get better at spotting them as you go. And then, yeah, don't waste time learning things that you have no real feedback about until it's time. And then, yeah, like at all times, ask the question, why can't I do this by tomorrow? What's standing in my way? Not that you need to do it by tomorrow, but just that will illustrate for you, that will illuminate for you the real world roadblocks. It'll help you order your tasks. It will help you prioritize things in the right way. Is just constantly be asking yourself, what's stopping me from doing this tomorrow? It can be an annoying question, especially as you get deeper and deeper into a project, but it helps clarify.
It definitely does. And it also pulls things forward. Like, practically speaking, and this is especially true if you're working with more than just yourself, if you're working with other people, asking the question of like, could we get it done faster? Could we get it done by the end of today? Could we get it done by tomorrow? A lot of times you find that the priorities that might have been surrounding the other priorities that might have been surrounding something that you actually need to get done melt away when you ask questions like that.
Yeah, 100%.
I hope this was helpful, gang. This is kind of, honestly, like, this is the way that we that we work every single day, not by like any code of entrepreneur, of any code of conduct or way that we structure ourselves as a company or something in an employee handbook or something that our staff is taught, but like Circa and I personally operate this way. This is just kind of the way that we work, and applying it to how you think about your music business and the things that you're doing as an artist, I think will be really beneficial. You can chip away at it, one project by one. But most importantly, I think what we've been talking about here today is like, how do you use this sort of workflow, this sort of mindset about work to attack the things that you are uncomfortable going after?
Godspeed.
So go use it. Go get your hands dirty, Indies. Go touch stuff or whatever Cirque said. And we'll see you next time on Creative Juice. Peace out. Feel the East Coast, feel the West Coast, say what?